My next guest was part of a famous Australian business dynasty connected to Ansett Airlines, but he also is well known both for his business and his successes and some high-profile challenges along the way. Bob Ansett pioneered car rentals in Australia, building the budget rent-a-car business. He's now joined market consultancy, strategy and action to help companies grow faster. Bob Ansett, Director of Bob Ansett Marketing, and Stephen Johnson, Director of Strategy and Action. Welcome to Switzer.
Thank you, Peter.
Look, when I had a chance to bring you on the program, I was always happy to do it because as a young bloke, I saw you build budget before my eyes on television every night. But of course, then you had the fall from grace and all that sort of stuff. What made you go in head-to-head battle with your old man?
Well, I really had no choice. I'd been fighting for 10 years to break the airport monopoly that Avis had for 30-odd years. And
Ansett owned Avis, didn't
Well, Ansett bought Avis at the time of when I was close to achieving my goal of getting budget onto the airports. And his company bought it. And I remember clearly, like it was yesterday, he rang me after the stock exchange had closed, and he said, "Look, I just want you to know I bought Avis." And I said, "Why would you buy Avis? I can't believe it. They're at the top of the ladder. There's only one way they can go, and that's down, and I'm going to help them." And anyway, that began the battle, which on that one we happened to win.
He was a pretty competitive bloke too, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I'm pretty competitive too.
Yeah, you were as well. So in terms of building the company, how did you grow it? Because it was a $400 million business at one stage. What was at the core? What was the business secrets that you think underpin that growth?
Well, we took a slightly different approach to the conduct of business in Australia as it was at the time. I put an enormous focus on building a team of loyal employees that thought that there was nothing that they couldn't achieve and encouraged them all along the journey. We focused on customer satisfaction. At the time, in the 60s and early 70s, it wasn't something that companies in Australia placed a lot of emphasis on. But I'd lived in America for 20 years and I understood the importance of customer service. And then we brought in creativity. We had three basic principles we worked on. Number one was differentiation, not only from other car rental companies, but from any other business in Australia. The second one was innovation and constantly innovating. And the third one was creative marketing. And that were the three pillars of which we built the company.
And you had a unique selling proposition. I'm not sure whether it came from America, but it was drive your dollar further. Was that something that we used here, or was it being used in America?
No. As a matter of fact, Budget America picked it up from us later on, but we'd used it for about 5 years before, and it was one that really lent itself truly to the car rental industry. It was
most definitely.
Totally explained it.
Yeah. And so what happened, Bob? Why did it all go pear-shaped in the end?
Well, budget grew exponentially. We were growing at a compound rate of 19% a year. And we expanded into the Asia-Pacific region, to all the Asia-Pacific countries. Budget America asked us to go over and take over their UK operation and also encouraged us to develop the Japanese market. We were the first international car rental company into Japan. All that was designed to ensure that I had a buffer zone for budget, that things happened in Australia more so then than now, although this latest resource tax perhaps is indicative, maybe it hasn't changed as much. That government and policy decisions could have a big impact on business. And as we got to be the dominant market leader in rental cars and had 20,000 vehicles that we operated in Australia, that was $50 million worth of cars, I was very vulnerable to any major downturn in the market. And that's why we spread internationally. But the international outlets were still in their infancy. And then we were hit by the perfect economic storm. The first one was the share market crash. Banks got concerned.
So what year were we talking about here?
87.
87, yeah.
Share market crash. The banks called in a lot of their outstanding exposure. Budget was built, as many companies were in those days, on debt financing for lots of reasons. So we were deeply exposed, but I could have dealt with that. We then had the beginning of the recession. Victoria was the first off the track and could have dealt with that. But the third one was unprecedented. That was the airline strike that virtually shut down our business for months on end. One stage I remember having 6,000 cars sitting on grass at airports around Australia that I couldn't turn a wheel on. And there was no market to sell them. And so
it was a kind of thing in your risk management you just couldn't have factored that one in, could you?
That one I couldn't have. The others we did have factored in. But all the same, the budget brand by that stage was so strong, I couldn't fund the company any longer. It was a private company. I couldn't fund it any longer. So I went to Budget America. They took it over, and I gave them the keys to the building and walked out. The company never lost a day's trading. It didn't retrench employees, and it continued on pretty much in the style that it was running for the next 4 or 5 years.
How did it affect you as an individual? Because you became a legend of business. You were famous for success. You grew this fantastically, and then you had to, I might be wrong, but you seemed to escape to Noosa. But maybe I was wrong, but that's where I identified you from. Did you find it difficult to see something that you built so effectively go because of these unusual circumstances?
Yeah, it was hurtful, but the saving grace was the company survived me. Yeah. My dad's company didn't really survive. No. And the company and Budget, of course, is still a major player. Within 3 weeks after leaving Budget, I set up Bob Ansett Marketing, and we focused on a niche in the market, encouraging businesses to develop relationships with their employees, as we had over the years. And we said the most important customer you have is your employees to big companies. And did that for the next 5 years out of Melbourne. And then we had an epiphany in our holidays in Noosa in 1996 and thought, well, I was also on the speaker circuit and was doing 30 or 40 presentations a year. I said, well, you know, I could do this from Noosa and enjoy the lifestyle. And so subsequently we moved up to Noosa, and I've been and have been and still am doing about 50 public speaking engagements a year, which which I enjoy doing. I travel. I'm watching the leading edge of change and able to share my experiences with audiences around Australia.
Okay, so Steve, tell us about your business, Strategy and Action.
Yep.
What's the history of that?
Strategy and Action is a marketing consultancy. We have consultants up and down the East Coast. I guess in some ways we're a bit different. We diagnose, prescribe, implement, and then I guess make ourselves redundant wherever possible. So
you're not a consultant that hangs around like a bad smell. You get in there, do the job and get out.
Pretty much. We, I guess, conduct 3 kinds of intel gathering for our clients first: market intel, competitor intel,
intel, you mean
and client
intelligence.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Go careful. There's normal
market
people
research.
out here watching this program, by the way.
Very true, Peter.
Okay.
Very true. Market research, I guess, is what you could call it competitor research. Yeah. And the client intel gathering is pretty much a SWOT and looking for underutilised opportunities and assets that have been forgotten. We then prescribe a strategy and write the marketing plan that's going to take that to market. We then take off the academic hat and roll up the sleeves. And we become a plug-in marketing department. So we create all the collateral that needs to be created. We run the marketing campaigns, direct mail, online, or whatever. Then after a while, it's going to have been proven. It'll all be working, and we don't need to be there. Yeah. So we anticipate that, and we foster in our clients the ability to perpetuate what we did without us.
I guess some people watching this and could be running businesses because everyone has a marketing challenge, and often they say we have a budget challenge, no play on words there, with the market as well.
Yes.
What kinds of businesses? Are we talking about small businesses? Are you talking medium-sized businesses you work with?
Yes and yes. We've worked with a sole operator, hairdresser, all the way through to Henkel, who run things like Schwarzkopf and Loctite. Yeah. Very often the marketing problems are the same, but if they are prepared to listen to what the market tells them, that's a pretty big start for them.
Yeah. It's listening to the customer.
Absolutely.
So Bob, what's the synergy that you see between what you've created in your lifetime and Strategy and Action?
Well, Stephen and I have run across each other over the last few years, and we've had a couple of talks about what he is doing with this program. And quite interestingly, the product that he's put together is very similar to the things that we were doing in Budget. Through a trial and error basis. We didn't have a nice model. We had to develop them and trial them and so forth. Our most important thing was the relationship that we had with our customers, watching what our competitors were doing, and then finding a way to produce the product that we're going to develop that market further. When I started in Budget, the rental car market was represented by about 3% of the total Australians were renting cars. By the time I'd finished, it was up to 15%, and it was a real penetration. It not only expanded the rental car market, but it brought people into it that had never thought of renting cars before, because of the information we garnered from our customers, and they gave us the leads to help us produce products like half-day rates and long weekend plan-ahead rates, freedom checks, and things that had never been done anywhere in the car rental industry.
So in a sense, you're doing what Seth Godin always says, you've got to have a purple cow to make you stand out from the crowd.
Very good.
Yeah. And the argument is, you go past a bunch of cows, they're all black and white, you ignore them. If a farmer painted one purple, you just say, look at hell, that's a purple cow. And so, is that, in a sense, I guess the next question is, what's the comparative advantage that you guys are going to take to the market? You guys, you've existed anyway, but you've added Bob to it. And one thing Marty Grunstein, who I'm sure you will come across in the speaking circuit, always says, when it comes to your marketing, the most important question to answer is, why should I buy from you? So answer that question, Steve. Why should I buy from you and Bob?
As simple as I think the concept of company-customer alignment is, it just isn't being done, Peter. There are two alignments.
So say again, what alignment were you talking about?
Company-customer alignment
is
pretty much the program that we're developing here. And there are two alignments in that. I guess, in fact, it's alignment of three. The targeted customer, the facade of your business, the promise that it takes to market, and the business itself, the fulfillment of that promise. A lot of businesses aren't making a compelling promise, and a lot of businesses aren't fulfilling the promise they take. The promise can be more compelling. We derive a USP. And then we help that company...
By the way, that's a unique selling proposition.
Absolutely.
And for people at home, that's like a catchy line that basically sums up what your business is really all about and why I should buy from you.
Exactly. And it's not a slogan, it's a proposition. So it is a potent selling message.
Budget drives your dollar further.
Absolutely.
And just a point that I always found in Budget, when we're going through uncertain times, or even recessions, I always found it was an opportunity to gain market share at the lowest possible cost you'll ever have. And always looking for that time.
It's a great time to have a crack when people are pulling out.
Exactly, pulling the shutters down.
Bob, I always say, and I've learned a lot from having objective eyes in my business, people come on and tell me stuff I don't want to hear. You were a big star, you created yourself as a star by being on television all the time, but who was your objective set of eyes that taught you stuff along the way?
Well, I don't want to sound immodest on this, but I sort of found my own way. In the days when I started a business, you didn't have mentors, you didn't have business coaches. You really had to trial and error things. And a lot of it is common sense. I mean, what you were saying a moment ago is that for example, we'd have a policy where every one of our executives and every one of our department heads had to spend one day out of every month working behind the rental counter. And we made sure that that was converted into a television commercial, which a lot of people still remember today. Shows us working behind, myself included, working behind the counter. Talking to our customers, understanding their needs, finding out if there are any impediments for us that they're experiencing in dealing with us as a company, and then eliminating those impediments with their support, which is a great way to run a business.
Okay, one last question. Who is the greatest role model that you saw out there and you thought, I've learnt stuff by just seeing the way that business has done it or that CEO has done it?
Well, the role model was always my father, but I didn't really emulate him. I mean, there were some things I did.
You were softer than him too, weren't you?
Yeah, well, I probably was. But he had a great relationship with all his employees, and that's one thing I did do. I mean, because I understood it completely and how important it was. And so he was my role model. The other guy that I always I watched very carefully when I, having lived in America for a while, was Lee Iacocca. I thought that he also was a very dynamic leader, and he did some incredible things.
Great turnaround merchant, wasn't he, as well?
Great.
All right, so if people want to know more about you guys, where do they go? What's the website? I've got Bob Ansett here and Strategy Action. Where do they go?
Strategyhandaction.com.au is where they
Are
will
you
find
the chairman of that, Bob? Or?
No, I'm just an involved party.
Okay, mate. Fantastic. Thanks for joining us on the program. Best of luck.
Pleasure.